Hey there, modern math teacher. I want us to start with a sentence that's been living in my head rent-free all year since we've done our book study together. Struggle is learning. Drowning, on the other hand, is not. Okay. And so, honestly, the longer I teach, the more important I think that distinction becomes. Because if you spend any amount of time in education, right, you're going to hear people talk about productive struggle. And I agree with it. Students need opportunities to wrestle with the ideas, to get stuck, to think, to grapple, to make mistakes, to persevere. But sometimes I think we oversimplify that conversation because not every struggle is productive. And one of the hardest parts of teaching is knowing that difference. So, in today's episode of Poolside PD, I would love to chat with you guys about what productive struggle actually looks like, right? How my thinking has evolved this year since we've done our book study, why support and rigor are not opposites, and how we can challenge students without leaving them stranded. So if you're up for it, let's dive in. All right, you guys. Now, I think education sometimes swings between extremes, right? On one side, we rescue students too quickly. The second we get stuck, we explain, we scaffold, we show them the steps, and before they get a chance to think, the thinking is gone, right? On the other side, we celebrate struggle so much, we forget that our students need some support. And that's when our students can start feeling frustrated, defeated, overwhelmed. And eventually, they stop trying because they don't feel challenged. They feel lost. They feel like they are drowning. Okay. So one thing I really appreciate about using the illustrative mathematics curriculum is that students are often asked to make sense of mathematics before they're introduced and given the procedures, right? And honestly, that can feel really uncomfortable for students, for teachers, for everyone, right? Because a lot of the times they come to me and they're used to the, hey, I'm the teacher. I'm going to show you how, and then you are going to go practice, right? But inquiry asks our students to think first. And that means struggle is going to show up more visibly and more regularly. And what I've learned again this year is that my job is not to eliminate that struggle, of course. It's to support my students through that. Now, this might be the biggest lesson that I've learned all year is that support doesn't reduce rigor. Okay. In fact, the right supports can often make rigor possible, right? So think about some of the things that we've talked about this school year and throughout June, using turn-in talks, going up to whiteboards, working in random groups, really learning from the learning targets, using checkpoint assessments, different reflection forms, having the 3 before me. These aren't necessarily ways to make math easier, but they're ways to help our students stay in the struggle a little bit longer. And that's different, right? Because when I think about productive struggle, I think about students who are trying something, who are testing an idea, they're discussing, they're revising, they're making sense of the mistakes, they're working. They're engaged. They're thinking, right? Even if they don't have the answer yet, they're willing to engage in that kind of messy middle. Drowning looks different, right? This is where it's the unproductive struggle. The students are stopping. They disengage. They're staring at a blank page. They're breaking pencils. They're waiting for someone to rescue them. Or really, they just reach for any avoidance behavior, right? That technology suddenly comes right back out, even though it has no business in my lesson right now, okay? And that's where knowing your students really matters because the same task can create productive struggle for one student and overwhelming frustration for another. So our goal is to have the supports in there to keep them both on that rigorous journey without overwhelming or over supporting either one of them. Now, one of the ways that my journey this year has pushed me to think about is how deeply connected learning and relationships really are, okay? Because we know that the better we know our students, the more accurately we're going to be able to gauge the challenges that they're willing to engage in, and the better we can anticipate the barriers they're going to have to the lessons that we're engaging in, and therefore, the more effectively we can support student perseverance. And honestly, that's why differentiation isn't just about assignments, it's about people. Okay, so things we need to think about is making sure that we are keeping our students engaged in that productive struggle because struggle is learning, but drowning is not. So think about ways you're going to be able to get to know your students this year and introduce them to the productive struggle and start to see what scaffolds support students in reaching that rigorous expectation and which ones kind of stymie them or off track them or remove the challenge from them. Okay. All right, guys. So, as I've been preparing more for our July book study on math therapy, I've been thinking about that idea about knowing the people even more, right? Because every student walks into our classroom with a history. Some students struggle and think like, I can figure this out. Others do it and think, oh my gosh, this just shows me I'm bad at math and I am not a math person. Whew. Those are very different experiences and very different mindsets. And that's one of the reasons why I'm really excited for our July conversations. Because I think math identity plays a much bigger role in learning than we often acknowledge. Okay. All right, guys. So if there's one thing I'm taking away from this year, it's this. Our students need the opportunity to struggle, but they also need teachers who know when to step in, not to rescue, not to remove the challenge, but to provide them the support necessary to keep learning moving forward, because struggle is learning and drowning is not. All right, guys, before we wrap this up, here's something I'd love for you to think about. Think about a student who struggled this year. Did they need more challenge? Or did they need more support? And how did you know the difference? That's a question I'm still thinking about myself, and I'll be thinking about as we enter into the next month of Poolside PD coming up quick. Now, if you're looking for ways to create meaningful learning that balances rigor, support, and student thinking, don't forget I've got that free guide to help. Grab that in the show notes here. And next week, we're kicking off our July math therapy book study. So please read along with us. Grab the physical book or the audio book from Amazon, linked in the show notes, or from your local library, or heck, maybe you already have it yourself, okay? I cannot wait for those conversations. Until next time, you guys, keep thinking, keep reflecting, and as always, keep it real.